Welcome to our show, Tough Talks Unlimited, co-hosted by Derek Bowles and myself, Michael Garth. In this show, we're going to hear from world-class leaders and innovators, people who are willing to have positive conversations and share their insights on tough talks to get you through tough times. Let's get started.
So, man, I'm super excited today because first and foremost, I'm just excited about our guests. I mean, we have an unbelievable person who's going to be talking to us, sharing his ideas, sharing his thoughts. And, the irony is we're having the Tough Talks Unlimited conversation with Shawn Respert. And the funny thing is I interviewed Shawn at his home in Houston during the NCAA tournament, Coach.
Yeah, I know.
And, did he tell you about that $500 light bill I had for all the lights I had on the whole time we did the show and never recorded it?
No doubt about it. From our stupidity and dumbness, we just wanted to let our audience know that you didn't get a chance to hear or see a fantastic conversation with the great one from Michigan State, Shawn Respert, who I just respect at the utmost level. Some of the things that you have gone through and where you are today and the kind of man that you are is, I tell you, just more and more young men need to model themselves after you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate being on. And every time we talk, one of the unique things I've found out as I've gotten older, a lot of people value relationships for different reasons. The careers that we all been in with sports and entertainment don't allow us to have as much of a routine to get at each other,
Right.
as frequently as people who work 9 to 5s or have a more stable industry that they're in. And I'm always thankful that no matter how much time passes by, it seems like it was yesterday when we all talked and we catch up and it feels as genuine and as real as the last time we talked. And that could be months from the last time. So thank you guys for having me on. Thank you for always, just remembering that part of our lives. Our lives are so random and so put out there that we need to make sure when we do get a few moments, a few hours together, that we make sure that it is as real as possible.
That's fantastic. And you're a relationship person, and everything that I have been able to do has been relationship driven. I just, I was telling Dee today, Rusty, that there's not a thing that you do that is not eventually, if it doesn't at the present, that's not going to involve relationship.
Right.
And, that's what's going on in the country right now, man. You got people who are deliberately trying to drive a relationship out of the makings of the culture of our society.
Absolutely.
And in some ways, they're being successful at doing it. So, it's a breath of fresh air to hear you say it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Derek, I know you and I caught up, at Final Four, but the one thing I always commend you on is, we all make constant transitions in life, and I commend you for having the courage to continue to make transitions. As we get older, it becomes more difficult because we get stuck in our ways and comfortable. And life throws a curveball, and it makes it very difficult for a lot of us who've been comfortable for a little bit to have to, uproot and do some things. So, it doesn't surprise me that Coach Garland's the one who helps to assist in the transition. But I'm thankful for you for always, remembering to keep me included too. And you're, not just when things should be celebrated, but also when things need to be assisted in. And, thank you for that.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
So, Shawn, a couple of things pop into my mind, man. Obviously, one of the things that we talk about with, Tough Talks Unlimited is, things that people have overcome, challenges that they face, issues that they dealt with that nobody knows about. And, one of the things that I love about you, and first and foremost, I love how humble you are, man. You're one of those guys that every time we talk, man, I'm like, man, this guy right here, his history already tells his story, but people don't understand there was more to your history than people know. And I really want you to have a moment just to, as much as you want to, share a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced when you were at Michigan State and some of the things that you endured during that time.
I remember Coach Izzo getting a chance to catch up with him, and he made a profound statement. And he wasn't saying it in a bad way. He's like, man, I can't tell you, kind of the last time I was around Respert, he was 20 years old, 21 years old. I mean, I was just a young man, with the amount of time we spent. And here I am over 50 years old now. Like that's a long time. A
Right.
person changes into, sometimes a totally different person than who you are at that stage in your life. But I will say there's some monumental moments that allowed me to really concentrate on what I thought basketball could do for me. Um, Graduating from Bishop Borges out of Detroit, I remember uh, the first time I heard that my grandparents were not going to be around. My granddad didn't
Mm,
understand what a scholarship was. He had a
Mm,
fourth or fifth grade education coming out of Georgia, and
mm,
so my mom went. My mom was a nurse. She was a health administrator in the Detroit health department, and my granddad didn't understand about college. So when he had to pay for my mom's school and here an opportunity, to sign to Michigan State out of high school, he thought my mom needed help to pay for school. So
mm,
he
mm.
decided to do something that, as a guy, right? Like,
Right, right.
yeah, I'm gonna do something nice for my grandson and my daughter. I'm gonna help him out. So he put his house up for sale and he
mm.
never told
Oh,
anybody.
wow.
And he sold
Wow.
his home and they moved. He gave my mom the money, and he said, we're moving to Georgia and, see if this helps Shawn. And
Oh, boy.
when you talk about humility, that was basically what formed my idea about what selflessness was. And that destroyed me because my grandparents were everything, for
Mm,
me.
Yes.
mm.
And so they moved away in my first year and a half of school was like tough because I had my parents, and there's no disrespect to them, but grandma and granddad is those of us who were lucky to have them around.
Right,
They're everything.
Right.
I couldn't do no wrong in grandma and
right,
granddad's eyes.
right.
So that was the first lesson that, like for me, that was a big change. What do you do with this empty space now? This place that has to be uh, you have to create something, and you can create something that is going to be beneficial for yourself, for others, or you could use that moment to probably destroy an opportunity that you could take advantage of. Um, there's nothing wrong, with people feeling the way they feel, feeling sad, feeling alone. I just figured out how to take that dark energy and dedicate it, to me being a better basketball player. The gym was my safe place, getting in there and working out. I know a lot of guys, hear the stories about me in the gym all the time, shooting shots and whatever, but that was a place that helped me not think about, missing my grandparents, being at back at the dorm, back at my apartment, wishing I could get home to Detroit to, spend maybe a day or two with them, and recharge and come on back to campus.
Right.
So that was the first one. The second one was the decision to come back to school. After my junior year, when I kind of figured out how to, really put my thumbprint on what I thought we needed to do to be a competitive basketball team in the Big Ten, which was a highly, highly competitive conference at that
Right.
time. From
Yes.
Ohio State had just had Jim Jackson and Calbert Cheney and Allen Henderson at Indiana, the Fab Five at Michigan, Michael Finley and Rashad Griffith and Tracy Webster at Wisconsin. I mean,
Mm,
Minnesota had Rashawn Leonard. It was top seven were
yes.
was it wasn't even close with how we were across the country. But um, my decision after we got beat by Duke in the NCAA tournament, I knew that I wanted to come back to school And maybe the ultimate compliment I gave Grant Hill was he just made the game look easy. I felt like I was trying hard to be a
Mm.
good basketball player, and it looked like he was coasting. And so the struggle that I went through in that moment to be humbled that this guy who obviously, years later becomes a Hall of Famer, but
Right.
I was naive, not arrogant. I was very naive to believe that, whatever I felt like he was doing, that I had to give myself a chance to do. And that's what I was coming back my senior year to make the game look easy, to make it look effortless, to make the guys around me better, and really like prove that we weren't just a fluke, that we were a team that had to be reckoned with
Right.
nationally. And then obviously just leaving Michigan State and getting into my freshman year, I mean my rookie year in the NBA, was when I dealt with my physical health issues.
Right.
Um, that was the end of my rookie. Right after All-Star break, I started to feel um, some things, some pains in my stomach, some swelling in my lower
Hmm.
abdominal pelvic area, and eventually just misdiagnosed because 22 years old, 23 years old,
Sure.
Right.
those things don't happen to us,
Right.
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 So it took we misdiagnosed some things for a couple of months. It was almost at the end of the season when we finally took some tests and figured out that I was diagnosed with cancer.
Mm.
And so as soon as we got it done, I started doing radiation treatment, the highest radiation level that they give you before you cross over into chemo. And I would do that 5 days a week, every morning. I can remember the time was 7:10 a.m. Um, and then I'd go home we'd have practice at 11 o'clock. I'd get out of there by maybe 8 o'clock, a little bit after 8. I'd get home for maybe an hour and a half and then just try to lay down and rest. And then I'd go to practice. But that was challenging only just to the fact that I was too afraid to share that moment with my
Right.
family because we had worked so, I know everybody had dedicated so much time and effort to make um, basketball become what it had became,
Right.
that I didn't want to ruin the moment for everybody else. That all of a sudden
Right.
now I
Mm.
couldn't play, or now the way I played, would have put me in a position now I'm in jeopardy of not being in the NBA.
Right.
So yeah, I just didn't want that moment messed up for everybody else. So I
Wow.
just kept my mouth shut,
Wow.
did what I could. Um, I ended up getting traded like after a couple years and bounced around the league, but it just really defined me that I knew dealing with that. I knew then I was a tough person.
Right.
Uh, People say that about themselves. You try to believe it, right? You try to tell yourself those things that you want to believe. But I knew then, I said, there was no punk in me after that. Like,
Right.
I had my opportunity. I really wish, it would have went better. But, um, and I'm not as big of a guy person back then as I am now. I respect the energy that life tends to pass around, and you have to sometimes have a symbiotic relationship with others who have energy to give
Right.
when you
Mm.
run low. And sometimes you have to be the one giving the energy because some
Right.
people don't have it to give. I recognize more of that than a hierarchy type thing. Not that I don't believe in God, and not that I'm not religious. I just think that the position that God puts us in is there are people that I thought myself was who was a person that just led by example.
Right.
Not don't worry about talking to people or don't worry about trying to manipulate people. Just show them what you believe is kind of this is the best version of who I am and what I can do. And the ones that catch on will catch on. The ones that don't, again, that's why he has so many of us out there to
Sure.
be able to have a lot of people that can identify with different things from different people.
Man. Man.
Boy, Sean, that's very powerful. And I remember, I don't know if you had come back in the summer. I
Mhm.
just remember you and I spending some time and you sharing that story with me about your rookie season. And first of all, for you to share with me like that, that's incredible on your part, and that you would open up, uh, and then you chose me to open up to, and I still feel special that you would do that. But I've talked to several people that I could trust because I didn't want that story out there because I wasn't sure how much you had wanted it out there. And I tell people all the time that, look, had not you had to battle with your health issues, I believe your career in the NBA would have spiked at the top. There's no question in my mind. How can someone
Right.
go through chemotherapy and radiation and then turn around a few hours later and go to practice and make it through practice?
Right.
There are people, my best friend, God rest his soul, it's been about 5 or 6 years, played in the NFL, stuff like that. He fought it and fought it and fought it. And when he would go for those chemo and he would go in for his chemo treatments, or when he was going through the radiation, they would just
Mhm.
wipe him out. And he was a big,
Right.
strong guy and couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
But man, you talking about mental toughness.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
Sean, your story on mental toughness. I mean, Derek and I want to one day be on the stage. Oh boy. I mean, that story.
It's
Come
powerful,
on,
man.
man.
It's
Powerful,
powerful.
powerful, powerful. I
Yeah.
don't know if you've ever thought about it, man, but you should write a book and then really go on a circuit. I mean,
It's
really,
serious, Sean.
really,
Like,
really. And I'm not saying that to yank your chain. I think you know me well enough. But
Yeah.
yours is a story that the world needs to know.
well, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in just for a second. I mean, there's so many people that will be motivated by you
Mhm.
overcoming what you overcame, and that in itself, especially in the time that we're living in right now, right? I mean, Sean, let's be real. We're living in a crazy time all over the board. And so we got to figure out, if you can be a light to somebody else, if you can inspire somebody else, they're gonna consume that because they need to have their spirit filled up. And that's me being 100. It's got to be filled up, man.
I think there's a gift and curse to what social media has been able to allow a lot of us to have.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think the gift, of course, gives so many more people an opportunity to express their thoughts and beliefs, um, not to be drowned out by popular opinion,
Right.
um, to be able to, uh, like you said, reveal their truth.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
because we all have a story, we all have lessons that can be passed on. The curse is unfortunately that it puts a lot of us in a position to feel like we have to defend ourselves because
Sure.
of so many differences and opinions that you tend to find yourself defending yourself more than actually projecting what you truly want to say, what you truly and you spend more time guarded and
Sure.
overthinking things because things have become so sensitive now. Um, I Part of the reason why I didn't like telling my story was kind of that, and this was way before social media. I didn't want my story to drown out the positive things that were had
Mm.
already happened and the good things that had been accomplished already. I
Mm.
didn't want that one moment to define all the other things that had already been um, done and the people that had been able to contribute for what the successes that I did have. And that's why I kind of felt like I just waited till the end of my career plan to finally tell the story because
Mm.
the body of work itself hopefully speaks, and not just that 2.5, 3 year window where I was kind of uh, finding my way back.
Right.
Excuse me, to get to a place where I felt confident playing and my body felt back good playing. And and people need time, man. At the end of the day, even the people who had to help me make those decisions, like, the general manager and the front office and the trainers, that was a moment we all had to kind of, it shifted. The NBA shifted because we hadn't had situations like that, and nobody knew how to exactly deal with it.
Mm.
So, I respect them. We didn't know any better. We all just kind of said, let's just keep it hush, and we'll see what we need to do. So every team I got traded to after that, of course, I had to actually my medical background had to come with me, and he had to answer a lot of questions. I had to go see, multitude of doctors. I was also born with a irregular heartbeat, a slight heart murmur. So that was
Mhm.
always an issue too, for me. Every time I went to the doctor, I had to get on
Right.
a treadmill, do the stress test or whatever,
Right.
like three or
Right.
four times to make sure that I was okay. So, I've just always felt like I was a kid that I was a person that uh going through a tough period or tough stretch was never gonna like, make me like, waver or blink. I just accept it for what it is, and I was comfortable with knowing I could be okay. It may not be the best version of me, but it'd be enough of me left after going through
Right.
it that, you won't I won't be one of those people where you say, I don't recognize who that person is now. Like I'm still majority of the
Right.
same
Right.
person I
Right.
was when life was good and nothing crazy was happening. And
Right.
now to get to this point, there's still a lot of me left, and I'm more proud of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Man, that's great.
It's unbelievable. Well, let's right here, Sean. Let's shift the conversation a little bit to the NBA Finals.
Man,
Uh, First of all, let us hear your thoughts about what's going on.
I'm a little selfish. I've been fortunate after coaching for 15 or 16. See, I can't remember what COVID what COVID did. Where we stopped at,
Nobody
when we
can.
started back, I don't
Nobody
remember,
can.
but
It's like a
but it's you always root for your guys. And Rick Adelman was
hmm
the guy that gave me my first shot. When I
hmm
got to the NBA, he was with the Houston Rockets, and he gave me my first shot to get into coaching, and I didn't look back. And I'm so thankful for him giving me that
right.
opportunity. I was very fortunate to work with his son, David Adelman, who is now the
hmm
lead assistant for the Denver Nuggets.
Hmm.
And it's good that he and I will still chat and talk periodically, and just to see how fast you can grow in this business and how
Right.
you can really put yourself in some places that are pretty unique. Then on the other side, I remember coaching Kyle Lowry, uh, who was in
Yeah.
Houston with us with Rick Adelman, and first getting him from Memphis, and he was some damaged goods. Let's just say that he was
Hmm.
damaged goods when we got him.
hmm
But to my time spent with him and watching him as
Right.
his career is gone is pretty amazing. That I just hope that I root for him too to be able to get an opportunity to get one more championship because I wouldn't even thought he was got the one in Toronto. So it's pretty
Hmm.
Right.
amazing that this kid from Philly,
Right.
the kid that people, basically in the same mold as Mateen Cleaves, in the same
Right.
mold as it just kind of, where does he fit? What is he? Is he not? Is he a shooter? He's not a shooter.
Right.
I mean, just not the athlete, high end. Cash is the same. Like,
Right.
these guys you question.
Right.
Yet the one label I could say about
right.
Kyle Lowry that I can put the same with
Right.
Cassius Winston. Um, those guys are winners, man.
Winner.
Right.
You can
Thank
say
you.
Right.
whatever you want about the other stuff,
Thank you.
but if I can get to the closing minutes of a game or a defining moment in the game, I I bet the house that those two guys will take you to some places that you'll be really enjoying, that you
Right.
put the ball in their hands and let them
Right.
make those decisions. So I say that the finals, Denver to me is a team that plays the game with such fluidity.
Mm.
hmm
Mm.
They seem like they don't expend a lot of energy.
mm
Um, and that helps a team when you got to go into some deep rounds with teams when you can't get rid of teams in 4 or 5 games. when you get to game 6 or 7, that's the energy you need because
Right.
teams are usually wore out by that time. And Denver is a team that you don't want to see in 6 and 7 games because
Right.
there's
Right.
so much more in the tank the way they play. Again, barring injuries, right?
Right. Right.
Miami is a blue collar, the epitome of what a blue collar team looks like, and a faceless team.
Mm.
Right.
They have the superstar, and sometimes to his fault, he falls back enough, probably too much sometimes,
Right.
to allow the other guys to step in and
Right.
understand that they're just as important as he is, and they have to play well. But I think the distinct difference is Jokic wants to fall back, and the role players won't allow him to.
Right. Right.
Right.
Right.
Jimmy falls back, and I think again you have a team that because of that blue collar, they next man up mentality. So just
Mhm.
Jimmy falls back, the next guy says, "Well, I guess it's my turn. Let me see what I can do." And it doesn't work. Next man come up. So but I think Denver pulls this one out. I think it's going to take 6 minimum. I could go all the
Okay.
way to 7, because uh, Jokic is kind of not even kind of. He is a unicorn. He is something
Yes.
we've never
Yes.
seen something like
Right.
that.
Right.
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 And you could tell the sign of a guy, um, like the way Allen Iverson moved with Eric Snow when they played in Philly. The way I moved with Eric when I played. When you know there's some confidence that you can move around that floor and this guy's gonna find you.
Right.
It's like wide receivers who have a quarterback
Great
that
quarterback.
is just. I mean, they will run routes hard as hell
Right.
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 and
Right.
Right.
give you
Right.
out because there's nothing that prevents them from saying that ball's not going to be there. I'm gonna make my move, and so as a shooter, as a scorer, I think Jokic allows Jamal Murray and KCP and Aaron Gordon, all of those guys. They move so hard and so much with a purpose that those are the movements that eventually it's like jabs and you get into the deep round of boxing. Those jabs just kind of wear on your body.
Yeah.
And
There you
then late in
Absolutely.
the
go.
games, you find yourself after guarding these hard cuts throughout the first 45 minutes, that 3 minutes left. I don't know what you get. Whatever you got in the tank, you better draw it out because they still coming. They
Yep.
still
Mhm.
cutting and they still filing. He's not favoring anybody. It's equal opportunity basketball. So I just think Denver in the end pulls it out. But Miami for sure is there's no slouch team that gets to the NBA
Sure.
finals. So
Sure.
That's
this
right.
is a team you have to respect.
Absolutely.
Well, Shawn, I love Denver. I really do, and I don't have anything against them. But I've told D this several times, and I tell my sons and anybody else that will listen. I want Miami to win the NBA championship because of this reason. I am sick and tired of people that are in the business in the NBA because they know how to uh, add numbers to things that they think justify outcomes, and they are now making the powers to be in our game feel that they know more about basketball than Shawn Respert, than Mike Garland, than Doc Rivers, than any one of us who have played the game our whole life. Some guy who's 5'11, 350-pound, Coke bottle glasses, and has a computer tucked under his arm, he knows. We don't know. But what has happened, and I had an opportunity when the Pistons had their training camp here at Michigan State. It was like for 7 days, I think. And every day I would go down and sit with Isaiah. And I just loved the fact he would say, "Hey, OG, come on, let's go over here." Because all of the analytical guys would set up, and you know how we have the observation deck up there.
Right.
They all sit up there across the back. And he said, watch this. I'm going to ask them a question. They ain't going to be able to answer it. And he would hit them between the eyes like no tomorrow. And I just loved it. And it bothered me because I remember at the time Malik Rose was working with the Pistons. I don't know if he still does.
No.
But I remember Malik was telling me, because I was sitting there on the front row and the analytical guys were behind. He said, Coach, you ain't gonna believe this, but right now, man, these guys are the guys that are in vogue here in the NBA. I said, huh? He said, Coach, they're paying these guys as much as they're paying me and the other assistants for putting out numbers and information that, you know what? My granddaughter is really smart with numbers. She could do it. Ain't got nothing to do with it. But I'm going to get back to my point here, Shawn, in that you correct me if I'm wrong. 11 of the 13 players on Miami's team were undrafted. That tells me something about the evaluation that's going on in the league right now. That tells me something about the evaluation when they're in high school and who's doing it. And nobody wants to address that. I don't hear anybody saying, wow, how can you miss on all these guys and this team is in the NBA championship?
Right.
Just could you talk about that a little bit? I know I jumped on my soapbox, but
you okay?
Boy, I'm telling you, man, you guys know me. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. If they get mad, they just get mad. I don't care.
Well, it's what you said is dynamic, and the reason that Denver is now one of those teams that have ascended into that realm of like using heavy analytics to manage and operate their team. And like you said, Miami's still a little bit more traditional. Not that they don't use analytics, because you can't not do it.
Right.
Can't not do it. But it to me is this is very real in how we manage and look at this thing. It's the same situation we have with the way civilians have a perspective about police officers and law enforcement. It's what we have, issues now with the race card, whether you're black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever. I think we have to be careful that whether you precede the other, you do have a responsibility to make sure that you're connected, because none of us can be truly what we aspire to be without making sure that you're only as good as how far back the last man is.
Right.
Analytics, if you take the lead, then don't leave the traditional ways of doing basketball that far behind, and vice versa.
Right.
The traditional guys, computers have allowed so much more information to be accessed. We just can't pretend like we can't do without it. We just don't need it 100 yards back behind us.
Right.
If we close the gap, I think it helps everybody in their ideas about how we all still need each other. We can't have one without the other. But that takes a special gift because the egos start flying around.
Right.
And it becomes a very dangerous environment with people who believe that they're right and don't want it tested. They don't want their truth tested. If you believe in your truth, you have to fight for it. And that's when you're in a position now, as we've gotten older, that fight dwindles, because we fought the whole time to get to this place where we are. But as a traditional basketball player, I will always fight because that's the way I came up in the game. But I just want somebody who is now introducing something that didn't exist like that when I was younger, to allow me to battle If I lose a battle because of my traditional perspective, I have no problem with that. I can conform and I can understand.
Sure, sure.
But I just don't want somebody to tell me that the things that I was able to accomplish as if it was sheer luck.
Right, right,
That
right.
the human eye can't
Can
detect
thank
certain
you.
things that a computer can detect.
Right,
Right.
right.
A
Right.
lot of things the computer detects has to be done first.
Exactly.
As a man with experience and a man
Right.
who been in the game all life, certain things I can almost anticipate,
Exactly.
and our brains work very similar to computers.
Right.
So I just don't want that to be like disposed as if
Right.
it doesn't matter. There are some people who have an artistic perspective. They see a lot of creative things that go on in basketball. Some people are very, as you say, with analytics, is very direct, and this is what it is, and they don't attach feelings. But the human element is the most common part that's involved with
Absolutely.
everybody, and you have to make sure you keep that in mind, whether we talk about numbers or styles or traditions. The human element is one thing we have to make sure we concentrate on, because if that gets lost in that translation, it doesn't matter what the hell else
Right.
you
Right.
working on. Numbers don't
Exactly.
mean anything if you got people
The eye
that forget
test.
how to be people. Let's just be
Exactly.
people first. It's
Exactly.
still a game, and we have people who struggle with this thing and people who succeed. And I've enjoyed, again, like I have no problem fighting for what I fight, but everybody's not as confident. Everybody's not as comfortable
Right.
uh, putting a battle up to fight what they fight up, or be proven wrong and say, okay, you know what, got a good point. I'll go back and see how I can adopt this new way of doing things. And that's why, again, I'm glad you left when you left, not because you weren't still a damn good coach, but because the industry seems to not recognize what your gift was,
Mm.
as profoundly as it always has been. That you don't have to. Leadership to me doesn't quantitate to volume of your voice being heard.
Right.
It's sometimes those subtle whispers that
Sure.
make just as much of a difference maker than the yelling across the court.
Right.
So you always had that ability, and the way the NBA, with all the noise that goes on now, to me the whispers are the ones who will make a bigger difference to help the transition into whichever way it starts to go. But we have to find a way to marriage those ideas, or else we don't need a civil war. We have enough things we battle. We don't need a civil war in basketball.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, it just, I look at you and I look at a lot of other young men that are no longer in the game. Uh, I wouldn't even have as much of a problem with it, Sean, if that was you with that computer tucked up under your arm.
Right.
Because I
And
know that
Right.
with the use of the information that's in that computer and Shawn Respert looking at those analytics and evaluating those things about the game, if he's telling me that, then there's something meaningful to it.
Right. Right.
And you're not going to just say, well, the computer said blah, A, B, C, D. You're going to say, it said A, B, C, D, but coach, hold on. Hold on, coach. We're talking about Kyle Lowry
Mhm.
and coach. Trust what you see that he can
Mhm.
do, not just, oh, the analytics say he can only play 13 minutes a game.
Right,
Come
right.
on, man.
Right.
Come
Right.
on.
Yeah,
Come on.
Doesn't
yeah,
make
Come on.
yeah.
It
sense.
doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make
Well,
sense.
it,
But
it makes sense as a manager of the game. Um, you put people in position to do their job. I can't. It's not for me to do your job. If I'm in management and I hire you as a coach, and I have to understand that I have to give you all the resources that you need to coach, and I need to give you the time that it takes for your philosophies to be implemented. I need time for
absolutely.
players, for the roster to be set, and
Right.
chemistry to be
Right.
able to be gelled together. Those things take time, and I think that's the battle. Like, we're losing that sense
Yes.
because those
Mm.
numbers are only telling us what the end product is, that the end result is, but we're forgetting it takes time to become an elite player. It takes time. for a coach to design an elite philosophy, for
Right.
a culture to be established.
Right.
And if we just keep talking over all of that stuff as if you assume those things just happen because
Right.
we sitting in a room together, then you miss the whole boat. And this
Yep.
is why
Absolutely.
That's
teams
true.
struggle.
That's true.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Well, and it goes back to the relationship piece of the conversation, right? Like that's really what it's about. And we got to make sure that people are, you know, it's bigger than just the technology piece. It has to be about building people. That's part of it. So I have a question for you, Shawn, because you know, in my mind, you know, I know a little bit about your history, about what you've done, your time in the league. Like you've done a whole bunch of stuff. Um, what do you got planned? What do you have on your agenda? What's next for you? Because obviously, you know, you're very gifted, very talented. You have so many things that you can bring to our society. I want to hear from you what your thoughts are.
You know, you talk about the next chapter. I think, one of the things I've been a part of, this is year six, I think, or seven. I've been a part of the HBCU
Hmm.
kind of culture a little bit.
Mm.
Um, I was asked by the NBA Player Association to put the HBCU top 50 camp together, and we hold it
Mm.
normally in July down at Morehouse.
Mm.
And it's been a great experience for me, not having to have gone through the Black college experience as a student, but um, as a camp director, my objective and what I try to do is I bring former NBA players who are interested in getting into coaching,
Right.
and it's kind of a three-part piece. I teach them as as an assistant coach, the things that they have to start to really lock into, learning how to design a
Mm.
practice plan, uh, breaking down video. We'll have a couple laptops, and we'll work on breaking down film, um, working the board. You'd be surprised how many assistant coaches out there don't know and how to utilize the board in a timeout, how to
Mm.
actually draw the diagrams. So those things I don't ever, overlook. But point is, I think I've been really comfortable. Again, I understand I had a space that I occupied and I really enjoyed it. There's some, just like as a player, I think there's some dynamic coaches out there that are waiting for an opportunity. And I just don't want to be a guy taking up space. If
Mm.
hopefully I give my information to, younger group of coaches who actually probably have a better feel than I have on how to establish these relationships and cultivate these locker rooms,
Right.
and give them the information to be even a better coach than what I was when I started. So we have an element as a coaching um, camp. We have an element. I bring in an NBA referee,
Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
and Tony Brown was last year. Unfortunately, he passed away
Mm.
in September. But he came and spoke at the camp, and one of the things that we, felt like was dynamic was told Tony to be able to feel like he could talk, like we no cameras and any of that. Guys, ask the regular questions because
Sure.
I don't want you to ever feel like, why does LeBron get calls more than this person or that, right?
Mm.
Like, hear the referee's real version, not like the censored one
Mm.
or the one that has to be politically correct. And I thought the biggest thing that we got out of that referee exchange is these guys start really realizing these referees have basketball IQs too.
Right.
And they're not just guys who remember the rules out of a book
Right.
or, because of the game. These are former athletes themselves who played football, basketball, baseball, track. And the thing that you're rewarded on, these guys understand what a basketball play looks like, and they understand what a
Mm.
play when you're out there trying to force things. So they don't reward forced plays. Not to say it never happens, but that's kind of the defining thing that help players realize that when they make a play, these basketball IQ referees can determine whether that play was a basketball IQ play or whether it was just you trying to be athletic or whatever.
Right.
And they're
Right.
not going to
Mm.
reward you more than likely for just trying to go in there and fumble into something.
Right.
Mm.
Um, and that was a lot of respect for a lot of players to realize that these guys had that ability to go in and decipher the code, whether you made a basketball player or not. And then the final thing is we bring in a speaker. Derek Anderson came in last summer. Um, a former NBA player, played at
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State early and then finished
Yeah.
at Kentucky. And Derek made a good conversation about, just what athletics and playing sports help you be prepared for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Derek ended up raising his daughter, and unfortunately, the mom, ended up, I think she passed away. I'm not quite sure of, but it was early, and he had got his daughter. He was still in college,
Mm.
Mm.
and he still turned out to have a full career, and things that normally society would say, man, you're a single dad or you're a single
Right.
parent, it's going to
Right.
be tougher. And with the help of his family and guidance, and I'm sure his faith, he turned out to be a hell of a player in the NBA for a
Absolutely.
long time and
Absolutely.
done some great things even after, some businesses and being an entrepreneur. So those are things like for me with HBCU is just an opportunity that growing up as an African American myself, in the city of Detroit, it wasn't a lot of positives like that.
Right.
I mean, we
Right.
had some people. I'm not saying they didn't exist, but it was just a great opportunity for me to realize that it wasn't about me making it. It was just about me passing along something that hopefully somebody else could use even better than what I tried to use for myself.
Man, that's
Mm.
powerful.
Mm.
It's powerful, man.
Very powerful. Very
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Mm-hmm.
guys got questions? I got a question. I got a question for both of you, indeed. Um, we all share we've had some health concerns, all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you know, and a question for you, Coach, first, Coach G. How has like mental fortitude, how has that been a very important piece as you start getting through life and you see life deals these blows with you? I mean, you're well documented with what happened with, the unfortunate car accident and um, the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that was scary. I mean, even when I saw you, I tell you that you kind of breezed on by it. I didn't want to mess with you because you just kind of touched it and was like, I'll
Right.
tell you later. Um, how has just being mentally strong to not a lot of people, I feel like the PTSD thing seems to be a more apparent now. Things happen, people get afraid, they get a little anxiety, and they don't want to go out there and live life the same way they used to,
Right.
because they get a little held behind. How have you used just to be mentally strong, not to give in to that most people probably wouldn't even knock you for going back out there a little bit like, hesitant?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna take you back to something that you talked about, and that you were partially raised by your grandparents. So
Mhm.
was I. And I'm
Mm.
gonna tell I tell a lot of people this, and it has something to do with fear. I'm old enough that the civil rights movement, I was part of that. So you got to think, I'm 69 years old. What people don't understand about that period of time is that there was not only the march to Selma with Dr. Martin Luther King, there were marches all over the country.
Mm.
Small towns, big towns, black people were out there pushing for those civil rights. Well, I
Mm.
grew up in Willow Run, and we lived in our neighborhood. They lived in theirs. Our neighborhood was surrounded by two of their neighborhoods. They wouldn't cut through ours. We wouldn't cut through theirs. So now Julian Bond comes to our community, speaks at our rec center, and he encourages us or our parents and grandparents to have a march. So if you notice, anytime you watch those civil rights marches on those movies and stuff, all of us are dressed in our Sunday best.
Mm-hmm.
We have suits on,
Mm-hmm.
ties on, and there's always children that are in front of the march most of the time. Now, you see those where Dr. King them out in the front, but most of the time, our parents and our grandparents put their children in front. There were two reasons for that. One of the reasons was to demonstrate to the world that we're willing to even sacrifice our kids and their lives for this cause. Secondly, they knew that maybe those people who didn't agree with them would probably shoot and kill them. A little different when you got to shoot kids.
Right.
So there was a degree of protection there. So I'll never forget it. We're getting dressed. My granddad is getting me dressed. I'm like 10 years old, man. And we learned early about, dealing with white people and you stay out of that neighborhood. If you got to go that way, you run and you get to your side of town or to your street or to your neighborhood. And I never will forget the march was going to go right up through the midst of the white neighborhood that was adjacent to ours. And I never will forget, I said to my granddad, and, he straightened my tie out and everything. And he says to me, I said to him, I said, Dave, and I called him by his first name. I even called my mama by her first name, to be honest with you. But that's how I kind of grew up. And I said, Dave, why are we going up there? If we go up there through there, then white people could kill us. And he said, Michael, that's why I'm making you do this. Because I want you to know that in life, some things are worse than death. And what we as a people, you don't understand it now, son, but what we as a people are going through, it's almost literally worse than death. So I'm teaching you, because I said to him, I'm afraid. After he got through explaining it, I said, I'm afraid. And he said, I'm teaching you right now how not to be afraid. And that has carried me, Shawn, throughout my life. So when that happened, I just, that fear factor, that doubt, it was trying to set in on me. But just like you said, that you're mentally tough. You have inner strength. You have the winner within. I know that. I know I do. So I wasn't going to let that take what happened to me. I wasn't going to let that take the rest of my life away from me and not be able to enjoy the rest of my life with my grandkids and my wife. I wasn't going to let it do it, Shawn. I was going to get back to my feet. I was just talking, and Dee can allude to this. Last night, I was talking to Steve Hall's team, Cass Tech. They won their first state championship.
Yeah.
And you know what? You've been through it with Operation. I mean, man, it took everything, every bit of the intestinal fortitude I had to get back up on my feet, just to get back on my feet, because I was feeble and weak. And I'm thinking in my mind, and my mind is working with me, you ain't gonna never be able to do it. You'll never be able to run again. Never. Well, Shawn, this morning I got up and ran 2.5 miles. Because there was a time, but there was a time within these last, I think I'm going on month 7 or 8, that early on, man, I didn't know if I would do it. And the doctors didn't even know.
Yeah.
But what that man said to me, just like your granddad, man, I got chills bumps when you were saying that, because my granddad would have did the same thing. And it would have hurt me the same way. Unfortunately, he died before I finished high school. But I never will forget my name being in the paper and all that stuff. And he would call me, and he was just so proud,
So proud. Yep. So
and
proud.
I, when I'm dealing with stuff like that, that's the first. I mean, that comes back to me, man. There's worse things to death, and there's worse things than being afraid.
Mm.
Yes.
Don't let fear stand in your way,
Man,
man.
that's
Right.
powerful.
So that's where I
That's
get
good.
mine from.
Yeah. No, that is powerful. And Derek, I know when you came down, you spent some time, and I couldn't believe the list of
Mm.
things. I feel
Yeah.
like we went to the grocery store and just decided to walk down the chaos aisle and just say, let me get that,
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Let me
Oh
get a six
yeah,
pack of that.
Man.
that's a great way to
Man.
describe
But the idea for you, uh, I say this back with you, like when you walked in, um, it's one thing, my picture of you when I remember you coming in the house and we were talking. You know how people make distorted faces when you lift weights, right? And you
Yeah.
get that heavy weight, and you got
it.
them guys making them, like,
Right. Right.
it seemed like you were the guy that had all of this weight,
Mm,
and you kept your facial composure under all of this
mm,
weight. Like you
mm.
never had to distort anything. You just kind of held it up there, and that to me is a mental picture of you, like how whether you understood that you were doing it or not, but maybe there was a point of accepting. How did you, or if you realize, how did you keep composure under all of this duress? You didn't seem like a guy who had been shaken because of health, because of personal, you know, tragedies in your life.
Sure.
How did you keep your composure? Because that energy just kind of still stay constant. It never. I didn't feel like it dipped. I didn't feel like anytime we talked about a topic that it kind of switched directions or went
Sure.
from a positive negative. Like, how would you talk about keeping that constant line, even though there's a weight that's just bearing down on top of you?
No, man. I mean, first, that's a really good question. And you know, I always realize that in my life, in my journey, that I couldn't do anything if I didn't have a relationship with God, man. I'm gonna tell you right now what it is. I mean, God has been so important to me in the crazy times, and the good times, and in the happy times, and the sad times. And I realized that when you really just take your being and it's going to sound crazy, but when you become selfless and just give it to God and say, whatever you want to do with me, do with me. And I feel like God is a very faithful. I mean, he's very faithful, right? So he's not going to lie. He's going to honor whatever he tells you he's going to do. And so
Hmm.
I'm just thankful that obviously you could tell about my relationship with Coach Garland. Like Coach Garland has poured into me as well, just building me up, mentoring me, challenging me. He's doing all those things, right? Which is important, right? Because
Hmm.
if you don't have that and you don't have any accountability, then you kind of float around, and you kind of trying to figure it out. So I'm still learning, I'm still growing, but on the flip side of that, God has been unbelievable in my process, and I'm very thankful that I'm still here. To be totally honest, Shawn, I'm just thankful that we get to have an opportunity to talk to you. like
Mm.
like all this stuff to me, I'm just thankful that we get a chance just to chop it up and hopefully encourage people who may be going through something similar, because I think that's super important, man.
Yeah, I agree. I
Wow.
know we right before
Wow.
we got on the show, we were talking about the fortunate loss of Lance Blanks, who was basketball executive for a long time in the NBA.
Hmm.
Um, and we I did a camp in Dallas at the Duncan Field Fieldhouse. former NBA player in Cincinnati, great Pete Michael, has a sports agency, and he was asking for some help with coming up there and running the combine. And I'll turn around, I see Lance Blanks on Tuesday, and I'm like, man, it's been a minute. How you doing? Everything's good. Didn't seem like anything crazy. And then we said we'd get lunch, and Wednesday, a lot of things happened that day, but I didn't keep track whether he had came back or not. We were supposed to go to lunch on Wednesday. And unfortunately, about Thursday morning, we had found out he had passed away. So I like what you're saying, that we're never too big enough to hopefully at this point in our lives to reach out to people. You don't even have to tell or speak about what you're going through. Just reach out. A phone call, a nice hello, a small conversation about the NBA Finals.
Right.
Sometimes sparks people to rethink something that unfortunately a lot of people take through their minds when they're in some bad places, some dark places.
Right.
And that's hopefully what these podcasts, these platforms on social media allow people to know that they're not alone in their struggle. They're not. Success is failure, and failure is only defined by the fact when you decide not to put up a fight.
Right.
We know what the recourse is when you stop fighting. So hopefully people are comfortable enough to accept the differences between us. You don't have to like it; just accept that we are different, and God's given everybody a unique tool. It's just on you to go out in the world and figure out how you can utilize your tool was best to inspire the next person.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
Well, I definitely appreciate you all, man.
Yes.
Allowing me to get on the show as always. I love both of you because both of you have allowed me to continue to be me. There's one thing I saw it on TV last night. A guy said, a lot of times your family, your friends will want to say, hey, we just want to help you be the best version of you. And the guy said, yeah, but what about me and the best version I want for me? Like sometimes those signals get crossed,
Right.
and they're not the same.
Wow.
And we have to be very careful about what we want best for our family,
Absolutely.
our friends, and people we love, and what they want best for themselves.
Right.
It has some similarities. Sometimes it's really the acceptance of the differences between what's best, what they think for them, and what we think was best for them.
Wow.
Man, that's
wow.
powerful.
Wow, that's a powerful way.
Yes, sir.
What a takeaway
Yes,
for
sir.
our audience, man. Boy, this has been a pleasure. And, it's everything that you can think of that you would want in a podcast. You have delivered. And we're so thankful for it. Seriously, we are so thankful for it.
Well, thank you guys. And look, we look forward to seeing you. We have the annual golf tournament again at the end of June out in Grand Rapids. And it's always a big show and a big following. And Derek, I hope at this point you can be somebody to hang out with us for a day. I promise we'll get you back the same way you came.
Okay. Hey, that's super important. Super important.
All right. Love you guys, man.
Love
Appreciate
you,
your time.
Take care.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, Shawn.